Hello everybody, welcome to the Fabulous Picture Show and this screening of Team Qatar. Could I please introduce Liz Mermin, this is the director, and her star, Alex Just. You are a very unlikely couple who came together to make this film, aren't you?
That we are. The moment I met Alex and the team, who were 5 extraordinary kids, I realized that this actually could be a much more exciting story than a bunch of nerdy debaters, which is what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and from our perspective, we've worked with students in about 10 different countries, but never have we had a full camera crew with mics and sound and makeup and lighting. Actually, we didn't use any makeup. It's a very real documentary.
You look great, though.
Yeah.
Enjoy it, and we'll talk to you after in the Q&A. Thanks very much. Thank you. The World Schools Debating Championship is the most prestigious competition of its kind.
I think I'm quite a good example of how an accident can lead to greatness.
And it's where some of the planet's brightest teens practice for their future as world leaders.
He's supposed to know because that's his job.
It is sometimes needed for preserving of national security.
Fidel Castro's kind of gone.
Team Qatar is the story of how 22-year-old debate coach Alex Just
I believe they're not here.
has just weeks to turn these debating novices
That way.
into a national team.
I think this will be the greatest Qatari team ever.
But coming from a country with no tradition of parliamentary-style debating,
Vote for true democracy because you have to.
Team Qatar has a long way to go.
Because your style is very flippant, you lose credibility.
So Alex and his colleague Andy give them a crash course in the craft of debate.
Arguments will hit one another head on, and that's what we call clash.
And put them through an intellectual boot camp. I'm tired. And they'll need all the guidance they can get to take on the best of the best at the World Championships and make their country proud.
No pressure.
Liz, what did you know about debating up until this point when you embarked on this?
I knew nothing at all. You know, I was a little bit skeptical because I thought, well, debating sounds sort of dry and it sounds a little, I don't know, it's just lots of people talking. How's that going to become a film? I didn't know much about Qatar. I learned very quickly that it's about 80% foreigners. And so, you know, we have a Qatari and a Syrian and an Iranian and an Iraqi and a Pakistani. And I thought, well, this is fascinating. Who are these kids? How did they all end up Doha? Why are they debating? And then the moment I met Alex, I thought, all right, well, this is going to work.
1, 2, 3.
It was a very well put together team. They were perfectly cast.
Did you get that?
You used the word cast. I mean, you probably weren't thinking about a film when you cast them, but you certainly cast them as a debating team.
We had to go through a sort of X Factor, American Idol style audition process to find these 5 young people.
Were you Simon Cowell or was that Andy?
Andy was probably Simon Cowell.
Okay! Pay attenzione. You were bad. Oh my God. Like, you were really bad. G8 doesn't stand for great 8.
They have a good cop, bad cop thing coming on.
We could spend the whole 10 days being nice to you about all the good things that you've done. And everyone did good things in all the speeches, but the clock's ticking.
Talk about why you wanted such a diversity of personalities for this first year.
Qatar is a very multicultural, very diverse population in terms of the students. We've got Talal, who's the sort of natural-born leader.
Next, please.
Vartan, for us, was always going to be the engine room of the team. He has a phenomenal IQ.
And then there was Tina.
Notice all 3 balls are on your side.
Tina was a very modern Middle Eastern woman, which I think the overall dynamic of the team was very important.
You might not be killing these people, but the fact is you're torturing them. These very people that I've mentioned were forced to eat glass, ladies and gentlemen.
One of the things that I think comes out from the film, and this Aisha was particularly good at this, was the aspect of kind of winning hearts and minds, the wham element.
Contradiction right there, ladies and gentlemen. In your face. Now, no, not in your face.
You had Fatima.
Yep, she was just incredibly warm and was really lovely to work with.
One. I don't know how to do it wrong.
You did take them a long way. When we first see them debate, they're awful.
Yeah, they're really terrible.
It's actually more expensive to keep terminally the illness people in the hospitals than to get rid of them.
Debating seems to teach quick thinking rather than deep thinking, and they're called the leaders of tomorrow. Is there a danger that these leaders will be glib rather than socially useful?
certainly you do learn to be clever and glib, absolutely.
Your entire argument, if you can even call it that, was based on empty rhetoric, okay?
But the practice of having to argue either side of the debate, you know, and having to think through an argument you may not believe in is one that I think probably is valuable for politicians.
Doctors can abuse this privilege of euthanasia and use it to advance their pathetic and perverted and their evil means.
Liz, you might have initially thought that it was going to be a dry film, but you discovered a humour not even you perhaps expected, didn't you?
No, absolutely. I mean, the first thing I learned when I was watching one of the practice debates was how important humor is as a stylistic technique in debating.
Different things are important to different people. If I'm about to sneeze, I'd rather have a tissue in my hand than a Picasso painting. I think most people would agree.
You can't really teach the ability to do that sort of responsive humour. They just were naturals, I think, when they were put in a challenging competitive situation.
A box of Kleenex may be handy when I sneeze, but it's not going to represent my national identity.
That Botswana team was...
I know, I wanted to go make a film about the Botswana debate team after that. I thought, forget the Qataris. They were amazing.
Talk about world leaders.
Despite the fact that they did a very terrible job at trying to convince us why we should use military intervention, seeing to it that they want violence, at this side we do not want violence. And this, go away, I shall take you all.
Were they prepared for that cussing?
They were complete beginners and they'd never done a competitive debate before against people who they didn't know. But likewise, they had to have no fear about the kind of competition that they'd be up against.
People already living under the datum line. Yes, sir, you should better say something smart.
All right, what does Team Botswana propose to do to solve humanitarian crisis?
Yes, sir, I heard you.
Starting from scratch in Qatar, you had the opportunity to reach out to all levels of society. Do any of the 5 that you picked come from, normal schools?
Yeah, the team were a pretty broad cross-section of the type of education system that Qatar's developing.
They were much more like American or English teams than I would have initially expected.
The only problem was when I was trying to get them through US immigration, the authorities didn't see it in quite that light.
We missed the flight by 6 minutes.
Why were you late?
Because I'm Syrian.
What else?
And the Americans, they asked lots of questions.
We did have a kind of running joke that if we'd had a North Korean on the team, it would have been the full axis of evil. We did pretty well taking an Iraqi, a Syrian, an Iranian, a Pakistani, and a Qatari through customs.
They kept us waiting or standing for an hour just to spell our names.
How were the kids on camera? Because being a fly on the wall documentary, you do sometimes have subjects who look at the camera.
Since a lot of what they were doing was performative and we were rolling during the debates, they had to be speaking to an audience, so the camera didn't make a difference. I think because we were rolling then, when we just kept the cameras rolling, they just got used to it very quickly. And I think also because there were 5 of them and they were focused on each other, it helped them forget.
In the end, of course, we were persuaded more by one team, and this team was Team England.
By the time we got to the competition and they're crying and those real reactions to how they're doing, at that point we were close enough to them that it never would have occurred to anyone to say, sorry, it's a private moment, go away.
Part of it for me that was so interesting was the insights into the craft of debating. Does this mean that most people can acquire and train those skills? Can we all be like you, Alex?
Yeah, without wanting to turn into a kind of 10 steps to personal happiness and success pitch, I do have a DVD coming out. It's amazing what working with people of various levels of ability, just how much potential everybody has to discover their voice.
You can be expressive in a good way, or expressive in an absolute, you have no idea what you're doing, you just keep talking way. That's what I was before, talking absolute rubbish.
When you have the courage to stand up and speak, it's not only for a debating competition. Do it in your everyday life.
To stand in the other person's shoes, to see the world from the other side.
Liz, you'll be on to make more films, we hope.
Absolutely. I mean, gods of the film world willing. Yes.
And Alex, you must be so divided now. TV stardom or lawyer.
I'm kind of in pre-contractual negotiations with some people to try and coach a high school American football team.
As a reality show.
Yeah. So that's one option. The other is to go to the public law bar in London. So, I mean, it's up to the viewers of Al Jazeera, really, to decide what they'd like.
Vote now. Thank you very much. You were great.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure being on the show.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
The judges have come to a decision, and so we gave the debate 2-1 to Qatar.
Hey, coach, come click us.
Well, that's it for this fabulous picture show, and in the spirit of Team Qatar, we're going to propose a motion.
And the motion is, this House believes that Team Qatar should be required viewing in high schools around the world.
And I'd like to propose that motion on the basis that it's an inspirational, moving story.
Point of information.
You better say something smart, Amanda.
I always...
No, thank you. There are no good reasons not to watch Team Qatar. It's a fabulous film.
So you can go to this website and get your own personal coaching as well.
Yeah, it's the Qatar Debate website.
Okay, and then you can also get some pointers for the next fabulous picture show and join us on the next film debate. See you then, and thanks so much for coming.
Clear eyes, full hearts, can do!
On a scale of 1 to 10, I think I'd give it an 8.
I think I would rate this film about an 8. The characters in there were absolutely brilliant.
It'll leave you wanting to see more of not only the kids that are involved, but of debating as a whole.
And it does have a positive message on debating, that it's not boring, you know.
It gives me confidence in the future of the world, seeing those youths, the way they performed.